Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about proxies and After Effects. Now there are pretty much three things you need to know about proxies before you make them, or things you need to consider. One, it's its resolution. Two, its file size, or its actual frame dimensions. And three, its file format. And believe it or not, resolution and frame size are two totally different things in this particular instance. So let's get started and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so here we are in After Effects and I have a 4K footage right here. As you can see, the dimension size is 4096 by 2304. That's pretty big, and it's 32-bit and it's also log. So you can't get any bigger than that. Not to mention, let's take a look at the actual files themselves. This is a DPX, so therefore the file size is 36 megs a piece. That's a lot. And how many frames are there? Well, if we look down here, there's 1163 frames. So 1163 frames times around 36, 37 megs a piece, that's a lot of data trying to be pushed through. And so the best thing you want to do when dealing with a shot like this is create a proxy. And so right now, if I hit the 0 button on my keypad and let it load in, now I have a pretty beefy computer with a lot of memory. And so, as you can see, even this is starting to lag. It gets to a point and now it's just chugging along. And as it goes further, it gets slower. It'll get slower and slower and slower. But once it's loaded in, it's fine. It can load in, but that just takes a long time to load in. All right, for this. And again, I have a much beefier computer than most people do. So chugging through this much would be a nightmare. So let's go ahead and make a proxy. So when I said earlier that a proxy basically requires three things, these are the three things it's going to need. So we're going to create a movie. All right. Now, do we want to do half size resolution, which would make it at 2K, or go quarter res, which would be 1K? All right. So that's the resolution. Okay, once you've created that resolution, and what that does is, image-wise, it breaks it cuts the image in half, basically, of pixels. All right, it's much like doing this in your comp, going half, quarter, resolution. So you can see how much resolution you're losing right there, stuff like this. But if you do it on full, see how much cleaner that is? If you zoom in, again, we're going to go on quarter and full. So that's technically what that setting does. All right, so do you want it on full, quarter, half, whatever? So that's the resolution. Okay, I like to keep things on full because I want all the image I can get out of it, especially if I'm going to be tracking or keying. I want to be able to work with my proxies as if it's the real footage. All right, so let's go to the next setting. It's dimensions. All right, so we want to resize this. If we resize this to say half, say 2048, okay, if we set this to half resolution, then it'll be half its size, obviously, but it'll have the full resolution that you see here, which if that's what you want, then cool. Again, this is part of the calculation of its proxy and also the file format. A lot of people go with QuickTime. I'm not a big fan of QuickTime. I like to use JPEG sequence. Some people like to use PNG sequences because they're maybe a little smaller, but I'm from the old school and so I do JPEG. I also do full size resolution. All right, so I do full size and then my resolution is at full. Okay, so basically fancy way of saying all I'm doing is converting this from DPX to JPEG. And so we're going to go ahead and call this proxy. PXY, or short for proxy. You can name it whatever you want, but I'm going to name it PXY. Okay, and have it create its own folder. All right, now before I hit render, I am going to do one more thing. All right, I'm going to set this to import and set. well, set. No, we're not going to do that. I want to actually show you guys how to bring it in properly. Don't let the computer do everything, because if you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, then you won't be able to fix something when something goes wrong. So let's go ahead and hit render. Now this is going to take a while, so I'm going to go ahead and speed this up, or speed the footage up, so when we come back the render will be done. And we are back. The render is now completed. We have a proxy file, so let's go ahead and take a look at those files real quick and compare it to what we had before. So here are those JPEG sequence. They are now at 4 megs a piece versus 36 or 37 megs a piece. So quite a bit of a difference. Now, how do we add these proxies to our comp? Well, if we click on our footage, right click, set proxy, click file, and let's go ahead and find those footage. There it is, the JPEG sequence, import, and there we have it. And the little dot indicates a proxy. You want to make sure they come in at the exact same frame rate. So 23976, 23976. All right, so there we have it. There are our proxies. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means this has now been proxied, and you can tell because you can scrub through this really easily now. All right, this is 1100 frames, and I'm just scrubbing through this, and it's loading up pretty fast. And again, I do have a fast computer, but it's definitely a lot faster than what it was. So that's pretty much it. That's how you deal with proxies. Now, when you render out this sequence after you've done your movie magic, so let's go ahead and stop this. All right. Yeah. Stop. All right. So when you render this out to whatever file format or movie you want to make it, you want to make sure use proxies is set to, or proxy use is set to use no proxies, and that will flip it automatically from using a proxy to not using a proxy. Okay, and because I did JPEG, full resolution and full size, when I turn on and off my proxy, it doesn't look any different. All right, so this means when it comes to tracking or keying, I can actually use the proxy. I'm not on proxy at the moment, and as you see, when I try to drag, look how sluggish it is. When I turn on proxy, it's so much faster. So with resolution being 1:1 or full, and the frame size being 1:1, all right, I can track and key off my proxy, but have a easier time running with it. Now, if you're not going to be doing keying or tracking, I'd recommend you do like half resolution or even a quarter resolution, depending on what you are doing. It just depends on you and how much quality you're willing to lose with your proxy. And that's it. That is proxy in a nutshell. I'll see you in the next video, and thank you for stopping by.